Hello, Saints fans. Saints TV here. Starting a new show this year called The Team So Far. But just with the teams being announced only just moments ago, we're going to go through our list, Geelong's list as well, and see just who's been picked. There's a few big news and a few big debutants as well for us this year, which will be nice and handy. So we'll highlight them and we'll go through some comments that you guys want to join us with as well. I'm joined by some fresh faces. We've got James down the bottom, Jessica in the middle, and Sammy as well. Just want to get some, make it more of a community feel for you guys. So we're going to get some different opinions, different thoughts. It's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows, which I think is a good thing. We'll try and, have a little bit of a discussion and see what's going on. So again, as I mentioned, we're just here to go through the team. We'll try and do it as close to the team announcements as possible, and go through our thoughts, go through the injuries, and see what's going to work as we head and lead up to round one in Geelong on Saturday night. So first of all, welcome, guys. It's nice to have you here. How are we feeling?
Great, excited for Saints TV to start.
Perfect. Now, Geelong hasn't been a good hunting ground for us lately. It's been, I think it's 20-odd years. 1999 was the last time we've picked up the 4 points down in Canadian Park. So how we feel like the team's tracking to change that this week?
I think with the Saints, like you said, we've always had a tough time against Geelong down there. I think we're on the right track to have a crack down there. Geelong last year, as we saw, they weren't up to their real top-notch efforts that they have been, over the last 20 years. And we're kind of on the way up. I'm always nervous going down the Cattery, but feeling okay.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a slightly different ball game. I mean, we've always headed down to Geelong to see, a good close lose or close loss, because they've always been that dominant team. I think this week, the feeling's a little bit different. What do you think, Jess?
I agree. I was looking over the replay of our last time we played them late last year, and it was clearly one of our better games last year. I'm curious to see how we go down it in Geelong. There's not we're quite wing based, and it's not as much down there. So curious to see if we're going to adjust our game plan there. Obviously we've got some great wingmen, but I'm curious to see whether or not we're going to change anything that we've seen recently. I'm sure we will, but obviously to adapt to the fact that there's no wing, well, not as much as what we're used to.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. The GMHBA Stadium is a lot narrower than the G, even Marvel for that matter. So it's going to be a lot of corridor football, which hopefully the leg speed can definitely trample the Catters. Sammy, give us your thoughts. What do you think heading down into round one Saturday night?
Well, it's like the GWS coach says, anytime, anywhere. Should be able to play them at Marvel, Canadian Park, MCG. I don't think it matters. They're the same team at every single stadium. It's a mindset. And Fremantle beat them last year with the team that they had, who I don't think are nearly as good as us. So if they can do it, anyone in the competition can do it. And Geelong also hate run and carry. They hate speed. They like slow ball movement, which is not what we've been doing lately. So I think that will have them crack under pressure.
Absolutely. I love the thoughts there. I think you're 100% spot on. I think that's one thing they noticed. I watched a replay of the Geelong game from last year as well, and they didn't like the full pressure. They didn't like it against Essendon in their preseason game either. They like to slow the ball down and control the momentum, whereas, if it's bombard and high-pressure football, I think that's something that we can definitely use to our advantage. So let me load up the team. Let's have a look. We've got some comments already, which is nice. People are happy with the team, which is good. It's always a good start with round one. Injury-wise, we've been pretty good, which makes it a little bit better as well. Touch wood. I mean, the big notice that I can see is definitely Sinclair that's not available. But I think long-term, I think it's a much better decision to make, given that we've got a short turnaround for round two. So I do like that. But share your thoughts. What do we think of the first round team this weekend, guys?
It's great to see a lot of our newcomers to the club debut. I think it's exciting to see a couple of our drafts start and some of the people in the trade. I think it's great that we're going to have some fresh players out there.
Yeah, absolutely correct, 100%. I mean, you look at the wings and the backs, like on that list for us there, you got Bonner, who's listed as centre-half back, but he won't play there, that's fine. But Bonner, Naz, you got Mason Wood on one wing, Brad Hill on the other. You got Liam Henry in the forward line, Darcy Wilson, who's an absolute machine, we'll touch on in a second as well. And then Collard, which was a surprise debutant. I've seen his name pop up in the comments already. We'll touch on him. And Ronnie Burns as well. So definitely pace is all in our favour. Backline though, James, what do you think? How are we going to go against the Twin Towers of Hawkins and Cameron?
Look, it's a huge out, losing Howard. I think people underestimate just how good he is at those 1%ers and just shutting down a player. Yeah, he makes one or two bad kicks, throughout the game, but not having him is going to be a huge hole to fill. Conversely, I'm really happy that Battle made it up for the game. He'll have to probably step up there, I'd say. He might even have to go to the big dog and Wilkie maybe to Jezza.
Yep.
Or maybe the other way around. He'll be playing a little bit short Battle. I think where we're going to have our joy is through those halfbacks, whether it's Stocker or maybe Bonner might go back there. It'll be tough.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with anything you just said there. I think you hit the nail on the head. Sammy, your thoughts? How do you like our forward line? It's a lot different to what we saw for the majority of last year. How do you think that's going to hold up against the Cats' defence?
I like it. I think it's spicy. There's a few players there who obviously haven't played at AFL level before, or new recruits within our side. So I think that adds a layer of unpredictability to it, whether it be Wilson, Henry, Collard. Players that haven't played before, I like that. Makes things interesting. It's hard to read, hard to gauge, but they're all talented. And we've got a functional forward line. Most people are in there, bar Butler. So I think it's going to work well.
Yeah, I think for last year, we got to consider that both Memory and King played, I think, combined 18 games last year. And that's including King that had a game of 5 minutes and he was done with his shoulder. So that's a completely different makeshift to what we've had for the last 12 months. And one thing that's come through, the preseason is, St Kilda's very good defensively. We've got a great team structure, which is obviously correct, but how are they going to score? But this is a forward line that, Jack Higgins isn't going to be the number one target the whole time. Mitch Owen's isn't going to have to take the best defender each week. Little things like that just open it up from a team point. And I think we're a lot fitter than what we were 12 months ago as well. I think, the preseason they've had, everyone looks fresh. The midfielders look great, running both ways. Steele, Crouchy comes and returns. So it'll be interesting to see how he shows up in the first outing of the year. I just want to go through some of these comments. So there's a few interesting ones. I like the one from Corey here. Wilkie gets Cameron. I agree with that. James mentioned that as well. If Cameron was to push up, though, do you switch that to Battle and put Wilkie on Hawkins, or how do you play that, guys? How do you think?
I could see Cordy play him. I think he's a big guy, so I feel like he could go up against him pretty well. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they put Wilkie on him, though, I think. But who knows? I think, Wilkie had a great season last year, and I think he's got it in him to keep being great.
Yeah, I think in addition to that, Wilkie can get around the ground. He can follow him around no matter where he goes. I think that's a good call.
Yeah, I'm reading this comment here. Cordy too slow for Cameron, which is exactly my thoughts. He's got good skills, but he won't keep up with Cameron. So I think if they go anywhere near him, that'll be a disaster.
It sort of depends on how they play as well. Because, I mean, looking at the game last year, the round 22 clash, Cameron was almost nowhere. And I say that in much respect that, he's a very good player, but his output on that game was almost missing until I think he had about 4 disposals up until halfway through the third quarter. And a lot of them were just sort of junk handball receives and handball back and those sort of things. So Wilkie's done a number on him before. I like the option for Wilkie. I think Cordy, he showed some really good form last year. against the big forwards stepping up for when in the second half of the year when Dukes did step out. I'm a little bit concerned from a weight and strength point of view that Hawkins might have his number 9 times out of 10. Which, if that's the case, then I'd like to see what the game plan we have is going forward for that matchup. So just looking through some more comments. Very strong bench from Thomas. I agree with that. I think we've got a lot of pace, a lot of versatility as well. There's a number of players, not even just on the bench, but in the whole squad for Saturday that can play multiple positions in different areas of the ground. You look at Cooper Sharman can play forward, but can go back if we're struggling. Filippo, midfield, forward, same with Machito. Membry can push up. Mason Wood can push back. How do you guys think our versatility is compared to what it was 12 months ago?
Well, even just with the new guys, right? Henry, I would argue just what we've seen from the 2 games, huge call, but he's already an upgrade on Butler. Butler had that fantastic first year for us, but ever since he's been pretty hot and cold, and more cold than hot, if I'm honest. So having Henry in that team is going to be massive. In addition, I could keep going on here, but I won't take them all. Wilson, as our number 1 draft pick, he's hit the ground running. Unbelievable. He's already running through the midfield. He's popping forward. It's maybe not right in the midfield, but he's getting around it. He's getting amongst it, and I'm very excited for those 2 boys in particular.
I think Bonner, we can see him push up. Obviously, we saw in the Pracky games, he was like a standout in both games. I feel like he can defend, but he can also get us a goal or 2. So I have no doubt that he's probably going to be like that throughout the year, and he can go back when he needs to, and he can go forward.
Bonner's got those bombs too. He's got that 6.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We've missed for a while. Someone off that half back. We saw Howard do it once, I think, but he hasn't replicated it since. So I think Bonner's the king for that now.
It's such a difference.
Bonner in 2019.
Go, Sammy.
Yeah. In 2019, Bonner kicks 3 against us when Port smashed us by 70 in China, if any of you remember that one. I do. So, yeah, he can kick a goal, and he can kick them well. He had a nice highlights reel against us. So he knows how to do it, that's for sure.
That's how he
look, some of those games we try and forget, though, huh? The 70 points.
Yeah.
That's a one.
I made an effort not to post anything from that game.
No, absolutely. I just saw a comment there from Tyler. Bonner gives off Jason Graham vibes with his bombs, and I couldn't agree more. And that's something that Ross Lyon loves, especially the type of player that Bonner is. Coming from, Port Adelaide, he was at a good team, a good regular season team. A seasoned veteran. He's not, an old guy, but he's not just a rookie either. He's a recycled player. Ross loves his recycled players. Brett Peake, Dean Polo back in the day, Michael Gardner. That's a throwback and a half going back to, the good old days. But you can see the way that Ross is trying to build this team to be, what it should be. And I think we're seeing, the rewards of that so far. And hopefully that continues this weekend. I'm just going to go back. There was a comment here from Cam who missed the intro. So I'm just going to reintroduce the guys, the fresh faces that we've got. My name's Jaden. We've got James, Jessica, and Sammy. Some new guys joining the potty throughout the year, just to share their insights, their thoughts of how we're going to go this week. So really good team. I do like it. I think it's versatile. I think the forward line is going to be something that we can expose Geelong with. I don't think they've got a really tall back line. The fact that, De Kooning's probably going to have to take King, I think that's already a mismatch in our favour. And then you look at the smaller guys, it's a really middle-sized team that I just don't think can contain our height. So what are we thinking, Max King for 3 or 4 goals this week?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. I think we can get a lot out of our top trio of King, Membry, Sharman. I think they're going to be our big 3 for the year. And I'm pretty sure anytime Sharman's getting that mark and going for the goal, it's pretty accurate most of the time. So I'm pretty confident if he's going for goal. And the fact that King and Membry have a full preseason, they're easily going to kick way more goals, obviously. But I think, with that preseason in, maybe the accuracy for, especially I think maybe King will be there more, hopefully.
Yeah, I think he's got a lot of, raps on not raps, but, comments on his kicking. And he had that 1 year where he was, extremely inaccurate for us. But I think ever since then, he's been pretty accurate. Like, I'm confident with him having a shot. I mean, he looked good against North with the wind conditions as well, right in front, kicking it straight through. And he wasn't even just like poking at it, like 30 metres out, he was still kicking it like it was a 50, 55 metre kick. So I personally believe those troubles are behind him. And, we'll see the rewards of that this week. Just want to get your guys' sort of opinions. So we had 2 practice games, one against North that was, an official AFL preseason game, and then one against Essendon as well. What were your thoughts that you saw in those 2 outings that were different to what we saw last year that can be extra benefit for us this year?
I think it's the fit and fast aspect. I think it's been spoken about a little bit in the media. It's very clear that we're fitter and we're faster, and with the people that we've brought in are fast players. So clearly we want to adapt that this year and be better in that and move the ball quickly. And I think we're going to be using that to our advantage this weekend against Geelong. Like we said earlier, like they like to slow it down. I think that's what I saw the most, is that we look quicker and fitter than last year. And I think I feel like if we can keep that up, it will be, a big selling point for us throughout the whole year to do well.
Absolutely. James, what about you, mate? What do you think that was different from 12 months ago to now?
Yeah, so when Ross first came on, we saw almost instantly that the defence shut down every team that we played against. It was amazing. The turnaround was remarkable how quick that happened. And from this preseason, I've noticed we're trying to lower the eyes more. I think Ross has gotten into the boys over the preseason and said, look, if you're bombing it, you're going to get out of this team faster than, I don't know, whatever the opposite of Zach Dawson is, because they're going to get out of this team so fast if they're bombing it. And we've been known for bombing for far too long at the Saints. And you can see it from Wilson, you can see it from Henry and some of the other boys. I think I even saw Seb Ross trying to hit a few targets. So, I think that's the key for me, is lowering the eyes.
You're absolutely right. Under Brett Ratton, there was Kings in the forward line. Let's just bomb it on his head and hope for the best. If he takes a contested mark, then we're sweet. If not, get the small forwards involved and see what happens. Sammy, what about you, mate? Do you agree with James there, or you got some other thoughts on our game style?
Conversions inside 50. The amount of times it goes in versus the amount of times we actually score from the amount of times it goes in. It was bad last year. We couldn't get goals. We could stop other teams from kicking goals, but we wouldn't really kick goals ourselves. And unfortunately, that's not how you get very far. And I think it's a lot better. It looks a lot better. The inside 50 entries there's some work to be done. It's not amazing, but it's a lot better than what it was last year. And we're converting a lot more than what we were last year. But it's only 2 games. It could be different. So I guess we'll see what happens on Saturday. But it looks better so far.
No, I couldn't agree more. Like, in terms of the scoreboard pressure, again, I referenced the Geelong game because I watched it the other day, doing a little bit of a sort of opposition view there. But there was so many times for periods where it was 5-10 minutes that the domination from a ground sort of possession point of view from our end, we were dominating, but we just couldn't put on the scoreboard. And that's the difference between finishing 7th and 8th to then finishing top 4 with a healthy percentage and the confidence, that you can sort of beat anyone. And I think that's one thing that we sort of noticed against Geelong and Essendon, the ability for the other team to score 2 goals in a row. Apart from that one quarter with the wind conditions against North, I think that was a really strong point for me to look at and go, okay, well, they're really committed to, kick 1 goal, let's get the next one. You do that and you double up on a couple of occasions. That's the difference between winning by 30, 40 points and only just scraping past for a win, which I think is a really good mentality to have as well.
Nothing more disheartening than getting a goal scored against you right when you score one from the bounce. If we can do that to other teams, we've been on the receiving end of it for far too long. So exactly what you said, Jaden, is that if we can do that to other teams and turn it around, it's huge.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So just going to filter through some comments now, try and, see what you guys are thinking at home, what you think is going to happen this week. And then we'll go through and highlight some players that we all individually want to see, shine and that we're surprised about even. So let's have a look here. There's a few mentions of Zach Jones, who wasn't actually included in the starting lineup. It could be that he's still recovering from that injury as well. So they might be just giving him a bit of an extra week. But guys, what's your thoughts on Zach Jones? Should he be in there? Do you like his versatility? What does he bring? Are you happy that he's missing? What do you think?
Yes, over Ross any day. Ross is very workmanlike. He's not like, I like him and he tries hard and he works hard. His kicking's not great. And he's very cardboard cutout in terms of his playing style. He's an easy to read midfielder, which is part of the problem with our midfield. Zach Jones adds a bit of frenzy. He puts a bit of dog, a bit of grunt in the midfield, which I think you'd need against a Geelong.
Yep, 100%, 100%. I like his ability just to break the packs as well. I think that's something that we've always been one-dimensional in our midfield. And I think that was the reason behind Liam Henry being recruited to the club, to add a bit of pace, add a bit of flair, and to break those packs. Jess, what do you think about that?
I agree. I think the same thing. I don't think he should have, been picked over any of the others that are in the lineup. I think, especially with Liam Henry in there now, I feel like everyone's eyes are on him about, what he's going to bring to our club. And he's, in the preseason, and the Pracky games, he really displayed that and was quite entertaining. And I think that, he's going to be the one to watch. And I don't necessarily think that, Jones should be in the lineup. So I think the call that they've made here with our mid is pretty good.
Yeah. So I mean, again, it could be an injury thing, but I do like the whole list from top to bottom. I think it's the healthiest we've been for quite some time, barring Sinclair, Paddy Dow, who we're yet to see, who I think can be that younger version of Zach Jones as well. Anyway. But from a majority point, we're looking pretty good. James, do you have any concerns with our rucks at the moment? We've only listed the one. We've got Rowan Marshall there. Are you happy with that? Unhappy? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I am happy with it. I think we were good when we had Paddy Ryder, but he is a weapon. And he played alongside Marshall. We had to play Marshall because he was our up-and-coming youngster. I think unless you've got an absolute A-plus secondary ruckman, only play the one. We even saw with Grundy and Gawn, it doesn't work. So I think the way the game's played and the way we want to move it quick, we need that one ruckman. And Marshall's active. He gets around the ground. He could be the best ruckman in the year come the end of the year. Like, that's what we're hoping for, right? We all see potential in him. In terms of a chop out, we've seen Cordy do it. We've seen Battle do it. And then Sharman, I don't know if he'll be sub. He probably won't be because we've got Collard. So Sharman could jump in there too. So I think it's okay just having the one.
They put Owens in there for a bit last year as well, which I saw recently. They were talking about whether or not it's a good idea to put him in there. There's some pretty big ruckmans, which is interesting. But I don't, I think, like you said, Rowan clearly is our ruck star, and he rightfully so is the only one kind of we need, at least at the moment. We don't have a problem with him. Yeah,
and Owens, he's so good, right? He's the key. Like, we love Machito Owens. He's going to be an A-plus, hopefully Brownlow winner. And I'm getting pretty lofty here. But I don't know. We don't want him to get injured in the ruck. We don't want him to get a big knee to the hip. I'd leave him out of there. I wouldn't put him in the ruck at all, at least for centre bounces.
Yeah, I think Cordy's probably a good backup if we need it. Like,
he can get it.
Yeah, that's the thing about Owens is we don't want him injured, obviously, and we want him down near that forward, and that's the concern of whether or not if he's going to, potentially obtain an injury by helping out in there.
I like your comment though, James. So you mentioned not for the centre clearances. There was one game last year against North Melbourne that was an awful game to watch. And in the last, I think it was like within a kick the whole game. Last quarter, Rowan took the centre bounce clearances, and then as soon as that went up and was cleared out, they switched. Do you agree with that? Do you like that game style, or you prefer to keep Owens out of it and just keep him as on the ground in the middle?
I think if we don't have someone else, and Battle and Cordy need to play lockdown in defence, I think you can come in, and I think you just get that huge knee right from the centre bounce. The ruckman really has a big rough go, and then when it's a ball up, you're just kind of jostling. So I don't mind it from that standpoint if he just comes in after that, like he did for the North game, as noted. So really good point.
Yeah, no, perfect. And Sammy, what do you think? You think the one ruckman's going to be fine with us, or you think we need Tom Campbell in there as well, or even like an Isaac Keeler or a teacher we haven't seen?
Tom Campbell's a great VFL player. I don't think he's AFL standard. I'd rather see someone like Max Heath come up. And it can work, and it does work as long as ruckmen are willing to push forward. And the thing about Brodie Grundy is he doesn't really like pushing forward. If you compare it to the Melbourne, that's a player who likes staying in the ruck, which creates problems for the dynamic. But if you've got players that can interchange and move forward and kick goals, whether that be a Heath or a Marshall, that can work. It's possible. But I guess the problem is valid, or if Marshall goes down, then who's next up? Like who fills in the boots? So that's a valid concern, because it can happen and it might happen. It's not out of the realm of possibility. So if you have a Max Heath and you have him ready to go, he's been in the AFL system for 3-4 years now. So
yeah.
I can imagine he's not far off from having a debut if Rowan needs a spell, because he's not young anymore. He's 29, 28, I think.
Yeah, he's getting on. He was a mature age recruit coming out of the state league, so he's definitely valuable for us. I almost put him as the most valuable player for us, not the best player, but in terms of the value he brings, not only with his tap work. I saw a comment there that his tap work's not the best. Again, he was never a ruckman to begin with. He came through as a start-up forward, almost like a second tall. But his ability to then act as another midfielder, not only with clearances, possessions, but also tackles as well. I feel like his value to our team is second to none. And I feel like he's almost more important than Max King. We saw last year, Max King helps us, don't get me wrong, but from a value point, we can live without Max for a little bit if we needed to. I don't think we can live without Rowan for more than a week if that was to happen. Perfect. So let's have a look here. So I want to get some thoughts from you guys. We've seen the team list. We've had a bit of a discussion. This year, who are you excited to see? Who are you surprised to see so far, also early in the season? And in regards to our team, who's going to be the difference maker? So we'll start with you, Jess. Who's your one to watch this year?
Might be a bit of a surprise, but Liam Stocker, actually. There was some moments he had in the Pracky games that I saw that I thought were really great. He really gelled with the boys last year. And I'm glad that he's, obviously starting this week, and he's going to be given that chance down back, because I don't think he played all of last year. He kind of was in there a little bit, I believe. But he's my personal favorite. I feel like, I don't know, something about the way he played and seeing some stuff through preseason, he seems like he could potentially go that step further. But I think Nasiah, I think he's on the verge of doing even greater things. I think he's about to hit another level. Last year was super exciting, and it seems just every time I see him get better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. In relation to Stocker, do you think his importance is even more valid now with Webster out for that long period of time? I don't want to touch on that too much because it's
absolutely.
Obviously,
obviously that's clearly something that's going to be addressed with the boys. Like there's a clear open gap for probably a large portion of the first part of the year. I think that has allowed him to probably, have this chance to he'll probably play, I feel like, the next 7 games, having that spot open. And I think it's probably his chance to show Ross that, he can be a good defender for us.
Yeah, 100%. So, James, I just want to get your thoughts on a comment here because I like the way you were talking about some players earlier. So, and I mean, you guys, Jess and Sammy, can chip in as well. So, Max King, as I mentioned, I don't think he's as valuable as what Rowan is. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's useless, but just from a team perspective. Ashley's written here, doesn't have a second effort, spot on, can live without him. I half agree with that comment. I thought last year, 100%, absolutely spot on, goes for the mark, doesn't get it, then it's just like, okay, well, I'll let, Jack Higgins and Dan Butler take control. What did you see? Because I saw something in the practice games that was completely different to that. What do you guys see?
Yeah.
He's getting up straight away after he lost the ball.
Standard.
And that's the difference. That's all it is.
100%. There was a patch in North Melbourne game. I think it was either the third quarter or the last quarter where he went for the mark. The wing, was stuffing around. So, but he chased 15 minutes to then cause a clanger on the other end that we scored a goal from. If that's the efforts he's going to bring on a consistent basis, from quarter to quarter, game to game, then we're going to see a much different team.
Max, I think everyone's forgotten just how good he can be. The one thing, I was saying this to my wife earlier, the one thing I want this year, if I could only pick one, is that Max King plays every game. The consistency having the consistency of every game would just unleash a Max King that I don't think we've ever seen his 100% output just yet. And it's easy to pile on someone who's missing games every now and then from injury. So, yeah, he'll be huge for us.
And it's not like he's had niggling injuries. Like, I mean, he was drafted with an ACL. So that's a massive injury in itself. Last year was hampered by shoulder for, the first part of it and then re-injured it halfway through. So it looks like, and from what I saw in the practice games, he looks confident in his body again. There's some comments here, like his second, third efforts, his ground ball gets. He wasn't doing that last year. He was just, going for the mark, and then he was like, oh, well, I didn't get it. My shoulder's a bit sore. Like, that's going to be it. So I think if we can see what we saw in the practice games on a consistent basis, there's going to be a much prouder, fans to be cheering for him. But I think we're going to see much better results on the scoreboard from him as well in 2024. Remember, he kicked 28 goals in 11 games as well. So, I mean, take that to 10 games because he missed the majority of the Melbourne one. That's 3 goals a game. He does that on a 20-game basis per year. That's 60-plus finals. That's a good return from a full forward these days. So, James, let me have a look. So, Jess has mentioned Stocker and Naz as her breakout players and exciting to watch. What about you? Who are you excited to see in the red, white, and black this year?
Brad Hill, I think he's really good under Ross. He has that structure. He's got that wing. And I think what is really good for Hilly is having those young boys to nurture. I think it actually makes him play better. So I think Henry's living with him. Maybe one of the other boys is living with him too.
I think Collard's living with him as well. Yeah.
So I didn't want to get the name wrong. So Collard as well. I think he kind of guides them through, and he doesn't want to stuff up in front of those boys. And I think it's not like he wasn't trying before, of course, but I think he just goes up another level when he's got those young boys looking up to him. And I think he's going to have a huge year, Hilly. I'm really looking forward to him. Yeah,
I feel like he almost gets competitive but like jealous in a way, especially when the time trials came out. Like Darcy Wilson absolutely smacked him in his first sort of time trial. And I think Hilly would take a little bit of offense to that, to say, hang on, this is my thing. This is not your thing. You can't just walk in here and just take my crown. So I like to think that he uses that as a bit of a competitive edge. Do you think Hilly's going to have a great year, Sammy, or you got some other eyes on some other players?
I'm looking forward to Bonner. I love the underdog story. I love someone coming from another club and proving their previous club wrong. And there aren't many players in the AFL who can kick 70 metres and hit a target. I think that's really dangerous. He has a beautiful run and carry. He's able to push forward. He's speedy. He's deadly accurate. That works. I like it. And it's a nice little sort of, meanwhile replacement for Sinclair while we're missing him this week. And whether he stays in the side or not after such time, I don't know. But I think he'll be a valuable asset. Move the ball up the field really quickly.
Yeah, it poses a question. So, assuming from what I've heard, Sinclair's just out because of that short turnaround. They want to make sure he's right for Spud's game next week. Can Sinclair, Naz, and Riley Bonner all play in the same team?
Yes. Yes, I think that's a deadly lineup.
Yeah, if he plays
if I saw that from an opposition, James, I saw that from an opposition team on a list that, when the teams get announced, I'd be so scared. As you mentioned, Dave, earlier, the balls going in, they're completely different now. It's not long, high bombs. These are, 35, 40-metre kicks lace out to the forward in front. That changes the whole dynamic again.
Yeah, we got players that can kick now. It's great. And Bonner, if he plays like he did in the preseason, he won't get dropped all year. Doesn't matter if Webster's fit. He's not getting back in the team. Not
100%. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Clearly wants to be there. Sorry, he clearly wants to be there as well. Because, in terms of performances in those first two games, he was leading the stat sheet in both of them. Kicking efficiencies, disposals, marks, handballs, kicks. So he wants to be there and he's trying to get there and he wants to stay there. So, I think he'll be good. I think he'll do well.
Yeah, and I like how you mentioned the underdog story. Like, he was a regular in that Port Adelaide team. He wasn't just on the verge and, playing a game here or there, being the sub. Like, he was part of their back six. And the fact that he didn't get a new contract offered, he probably takes that, as I mentioned with Hilly, with the time trial ground. He probably takes that to heart a little bit and can use that as a bit of motivation to come out with the new team, new environment. As you said, lethal left foot under the roof of Marvel for 14, 15 games a year. The world's his oyster when it comes to that. I think he's been an absolute great pickup, and I think all three can play together. Hopefully, it means Sinclair becomes more of a full-time mid. Because I think his ball use is just a point of difference that we don't have. It allows, Crouch, Steele, and Ross to focus on the clearances, and then allows Hill, Sinclair, Naz, Henry as well to then deliver it to our big tall timbers up forward. Just seeing some comments here. I'm trying to get a bit of a grasp on what you guys are thinking at home. Comment on Webster. I don't know if I agree with this, Corey. Corey's mentioned Webster goes straight back into the side after the 7-week suspension. What are you guys' thoughts on that? I personally don't agree with that.
I don't think you will either. I think it's ironic that he comes back to our North Melbourne game. That would be round 8. So, if they want to play it that way and not put him in for that reason, then maybe. But I think if we've got, like we touched on before with like Bonner, Messiah, Sinclair, they could potentially be deadly, and whether or not we want to, pull someone out to put him in is all going to determine, I think, how we go over the next 7 weeks and whether or not this, I guess, slightly new 6 or, we've got a few different people in there now and with him out, whether or not they will want to put him in there. If it's going to work for us, having, Bono, if we're going to try and play him as much as possible and we don't want to bring him out, then potentially he might not start round 8.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree. I think the AFL has definitely done a little bit of a popcorn show for the length of suspension. It's just ironic that it's round 8 to be North Melbourne when he's available. But I don't think he's – I'd like to see the form that we're carrying into that game. The back six especially, who's playing well, who's not. Is there anyone under the pump? Then maybe the conversation changes a little bit. But if we're, hypothetically 4-3 or 5-2 and defensive, we've got a hard start to the year. Geelong, Collingwood, we've got the Giants away. So there's a few hard games to start with. If we're doing pretty well, then I don't see how he slots straight back in. It'll be interesting to see how that goes when that time comes. Senate clearances. Sorry, excuse me. Senate clearances has been mentioned a few times in our comments as well. Scoreboard pressure from our mids or from any team's mids this sort of the way the football is played is important. Who can hit the scoreboard for us in our midfield to relieve some of that pressure for the forward line?
We saw Steele pop up with a few crucial goals. If he could make that a bit more regular, that would be awesome. We need to see him get back to his best. He was a little bit down last year, and we know just how good Steele can be. Even saw Crouch kick a couple. I think what will be good, well, who will improve, and I don't think we've spoken about him that much, is Filippo. He showed glimpses at the start of last year, like right at the start of his career, he came really hot and he had, I think, 4 goals in a game. He did really well, but then he tapered off slowly and was just getting to 10 disposals and one goal. He's hungry. And if he's going through the midfield, he's going to be that guy that floats forward and kicks a couple goals for us. And with that contract still yet to be signed for an extension, he's going to be playing pretty well to get a good one, a good long one, hopefully.
I think he's being smart, though, in the sense of maybe not, in relation to the contract situation, is that if he can come out and play really good, first few rounds and get us those goals and disposals and things like that, they're going to, put some money on the table for him, because I think he's a pretty valuable player for our club. And I think you're right in the sense that he started the year off last year really well. And I think if he can do that and maybe, keep that going throughout the season, there's no doubt that he can also be, one of the mids that can get us some goals as well. Yeah,
make no mistake. I was saying he was going to try and get that contract from maybe 3 years to 6 or something. He's so good.
Look, I may have slight connections inside the club, and I might know kind of what their plan is with him a little bit. But from what I know is that he doesn't really want to go. He's got a pretty good place there, and he's has the potential to be like a leader for our club. So I don't think he's going anywhere. But I'm sure that it's maybe his manager's doing a pretty good job at telling him don't sign anything yet, play a little bit, and see what they can give you.
That's very good for you. That is for sure. Sammy, what do you think about our ex-players? We've always been a club that's been, they don't have A graders, they don't have any point of differences. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Do you think that's changed this year?
I think it will change with Liam Henry added to the mix. Wilson, if he ends up playing in the midfield, I think the problem with our midfield, they're not bad players. They're not bad players by any stretch of the mind, but they are very workmanlike and by the numbers. They're easy to read, easy to predict. They don't have that X factor or spark that you kind of need to keep other teams guessing. And I think Henry has that. He has that spark and he has that flair and that unpredictable nature. So having him run down the wing with Brad Hill on the other side, I think will be pretty electric. And you've got, Steely, Crouchy, Ross, clear the ball out of the centre, which they all do pretty well. But outside of that, I reckon they should leave Henry and Hill to do the work.
Can I ask you a question, Sam? Do you reckon Ross, Steele, and Crouch on you two, Jess and Jaden, do you think our best lineup has those 3, or should we have 2 clearance beasts and then more flair for the other 2 midfield spots?
I think Ross should be an emergency at best. I don't think he's part of our best 22 anymore. Loved him back in the day. Took us through a really tumultuous era, but he's not up to it. His disposal efficiency is really poor. He's pretty slow. So, yeah, the other 2, Crouchy and Steele any day of the week, but Ross, no, not anymore. Love him, but no.
I'm glad you said it, because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I don't know if he's, potentially one of our better, midfielders and can do it for us. But it's not that, he's a bad player. I just think we've got some, great upcoming midfielders in there that can do it maybe better. I mean, I don't want to, be negative about it, but I think you're right in the sense that maybe it's not, maybe it's not, he's on his peak anymore.
I agree with that. I think, personally, what I'd like to see Mitch Owens. I think he's that next player that can go in because he's a bit of both. Now, I don't think he's got the kicking ability to hit someone 30 metres out, lace out, but I think his ability and height and body and strength and everything, his determination, is that young sort of bull is just going to barge his way through. Sort of gives me I don't want to compare him to a young Patrick Dangerfield because they're different players, but the body type is, I think, absolutely on par. And he shows what he can do. Now, Mitch Owens isn't going to be that 30 disposal player. I don't think he's ever going to get to that point. But if he can go into the midfield, collect, 5-6 clearances, have 15, 16 contested possessions, and then that allows, Hill, Sinclair, Henry to then forward it and kick it to Kingy and Tim Membry. I think that's an absolute platter for success. And I think Ross is definitely the one that may miss out. They might even try and rest him a couple of times with his aging body. Don't want him to have too many soft tissue injuries as well. But it's finally good to have a little bit of depth within that midfield group that, we're starting to think about, okay, well, who's actually going to miss out because they can't all fit?
Yeah.
All right. So I think that'll do it for tonight, guys. We've had a really good discussion. I think we've got some really good points and some really good foundations for a really solid year. Before we finish up, though, I want to get a tip and sort of a casting moment from you guys of how we think this weekend's going to go. Who's going to win, and how much they're going to win by. Hopefully, it's going to be for the Saints. But share us your thoughts on that one, and then we might grab some quick comments, and then we'll wrap everything up for this episode of the teams, the first one for 2024. So, Samuel, I'll start with you, mate. Who's winning this weekend, and by how much?
It's a hard because, genuinely, from an objective standpoint, it's a 50-50 game for me. The Cats can win it easily. We can win it easily. I think what it will come down to is pressure, scoreboard pressure, and run and carry. I think that gives us a slight edge over Geelong, but they do have a lot of skill and they have a lot of talent in their midfield, and I think they outclass us in that area. But bias, I'll say us. I think it'll be by under 10 points. I think it'll be a pretty tight game.
Yeah. Jessica, what do you think? How do you think the boys are going to go this weekend?
I'm going to keep positive. I think it will be us. We're all going off the discussion tonight's about speculation about what we think is going to happen and everything, but I do think that we can do it. I'm probably going to go a bit more. I reckon it might be by a couple goals. And I actually reckon that might come through the last quarter. We might just, come guns blazing, similar to last year, might be able to just get it over the line at the very end.
Yeah, I like the way you're thinking. James, what about yourself, mate? Seem to be a pretty reserved sort of guy, so I'm interested to see what you're thinking here.
Oh, mate, I'm a diehard at heart. I don't let myself get too excited before the year starts. I think I'm going to hate watching this game. I think we're going to win by 1 point, and I'm going to ride the roller coaster the entire time. And yeah, it's going to be a stressful watch, but ultimately I'll be happy in the end. Machito to have a huge one.
Machito to have a huge one. Well, we can only dream. I do think we're set, ready to go. I personally don't look at margins, especially early on in the season. Geelong away to GMHBA Stadium is never an easy task, no matter who you are. So if we can get out of there scot-free, injury-free, get the 4 points in the bag, one less win we have to worry about later down the year. But I reckon I think 4 to 5 goals, I think it's a fair margin. I think our fitness is well above, every other team in the comp. And I think, as Jess said, in the last quarter, we will overrun them and get a good score on the board. So I just want to say thanks to you three joining us this evening. It's been a pleasure chatting Saints footy. Hope you guys at home have enjoyed it as well. Having a discussion and seeing what you guys think and those sort of things. For the guys that put the comments in, again, appreciate the comments. We will be back here next Wednesday night, not Thursday night, but next Wednesday night, prior to Spud's game, round 2. keep yourselves strapped. I don't know who's gonna. We're gonna get some people to join. Might be you three again. Might be a mixture. Might go some other people as well. But keep them coming. Keep the comments coming. The more interactions we get, the better. Make sure you subscribe to Saints TV as well. Jake's just hit over 10,000 subscribers across all channels, so we can keep that number boosting, get him up to 15, get us up to 20. That'll be exciting. And let's look forward to some really good Saints footy this year. Especially it's down Saturday night, starting against the Catters at GMHBA Stadium. So let's go Saints.
Can't Saints.
Do it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.